Welcome to Do the Talk podcast. This is a real estate podcast where we explain and teaches to regular people just like us how to invest in real estate. We teach anything and everything about real estate. So if you have a question regarding real estate, you can always, reach out to us and comment in the comment box, or type it up in the chat so that we can answer it live. That is because that is the reason why we do a live podcast. So it's another episode. Ibrahim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's another Friday. Of course, happy Ramadan to every one of us, including our audience and every Muslim out there. Alhamdulillah, today is a good day. We are back here every Friday. This is what we do. We are committed, even though we haven't, we haven't really, eat or anything. We want to make sure we get this episode out there. Today, we are going to be looking at lease option and land contract. But before we start, we want to remind you guys, just like every Friday, real estate is not a get rich quick scheme. You will have to put in the work, but believe me, things will fall in place. You just have to be consistent, be connected, be friendly, network yourself, be marketable, be reachable, be approachable, seek knowledge. You know, go out there and put in the work. There's no reason or no benefit of you piling up knowledge, theories without putting it into work. You have to be practical. You have to try it. You have to reach out to people that are doing it. Learn from their mistakes. I mean, and it's one of the big reasons why we are here tonight because we want to share what we have learned, and um, at the same time, we are also open to learn from you guys because nobody knows it all. Ahmed, we are talking about lease option today and land contract, and I'm
Yes.
sure our audience would like to hear from you. What can you, or how can you get us started tonight?
So tonight is actually a double. I say a double because we are treating two vital topic in real estate in one podcast. So this is gonna be a very educative episode. And just like we do on Do the Talk, we bring it to you as it's out, right? So these are information that are not filtered. It's not, we don't hide anything behind. We just give it to you right as it is. So I think we are going to start with the lease option. The lease option is called so many names. One of the name is executory contract, rent to own, option to purchase. There's so many names depending on the location or where you are. But when they are calling all these names, it still means the same thing, which is lease the house with an option to purchase. So all these agreements for purchase and all those, it's just a way to get you confused and make it look like the real estate expert is doing a lot of jobs. But it's really the same thing. And when we are talking about buying and renting in real estate, these are the only two things that people always consider when it comes to real estate. So if you are not renting, that means you own it. If you don't own it, that means you are renting. No, it's not that. So this is the middle ground. This is in between them. So this is a situation whereby you are renting it, but you still hold the responsibility of the owner. Because if at the end of the contract that you have with the seller, you will become the owner of that property. So this is the middle ground. So when people are saying when you are not renting, you buy. When you are not buying, you hold. No, I disagree with that statement because there's a middle ground where you can at least test strong what you want to buy before you actually buy it. It doesn't necessarily mean you are test running the house because of course you must like a house before you go for it. But in this situation, there are some cases where uh lease option comes to play. There are some situations where that you don't even have an option. That is the only option you have to go with, right? So that is why we need to bring this to you and kind of explain what lease options are and land contracts. But let's just get the lease option out of the way and go. So from what I just explained, I hope I didn't get more people more confused. But what I'm saying is lease option is the middle ground between buying and renting. Is a contract that you sign with a seller or a landlord, the owner of the house, whereby you rent the house from the seller or the landlord with an option to purchase it down the line, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 year, 5 year, depending on what is written in your contract. And lease option comes with a sales price as well. So while you are signing that lease, you will be signing a contract that states that at this so time, you will be buying this so property at this so price. So it's kind of a way that people get into owning a property, owning a real estate, while they are fixing up their credit. Maybe they just reach the age of 18. They haven't have a lot of job history into their record. This is a way you can get into owning real estate without renting or actually purchasing outright. But you have the option to purchase at the down the line when you actually want to purchase it. So there are some advantage and disadvantage to lease option. And one of the let me start with the advantage. One of the advantages, you get to own the property without owning it. So you have a contract that you and the seller already signed. You can take that contract to a recorder office and record that contract as the owner of the house, but the deed is yet to be under your name. So the very good example of this is going to be a car. So you go to a car dealership, you get a car, you purchase it, you finance it. This is if you finance the car. Let me clarify that. If you finance the car, it's going to be uh, a perfect example of a lease option, whereby you go to a dealership, you finance the car, you get to drive the car away. You are the owner of the car, of course. On the registration, you are the owner. On the title, it has your name on it, but the title is not with you. The title is with the lender. So if the lender doesn't release the title, definitely you are still not technically the owner of the car, but every other thing carries your name, including the title itself. So basically, the lender still owe that deed. The deed is the receipt of the house. That actually proof who owns the house is the deed. Now, the owner still owns that deed while you are living there and paying them. But at a certain point, you will become the owner when you are actually execute on that contract that you guys have. So this give you a boover to get into ownership, property ownership, without actually getting yourself stressed up and renting where you are not comfortable and stuff like that. So that's a good one. Uh, the option to buy is not an obligatory option. It is an option. It is right to buy, not actual like you have to. No, you can actually back out. If you don't like the house for some reason, you can back out. If you cannot execute, maybe you end up going to a lender and they tell you, okay, you are not qualified for so reason, and it actually makes sense. No lender wants to lend you money and you can't execute. You can back out, but why backing out when you can actually negotiate and increase the term with your seller or your landlord? So don't think you have to back out because I said back out. So don't think you actually have to back out. you have an opportunity to go back to the negotiation table and renegotiate something that pays for that makes sense for you and that makes sense for the seller. So you have that buffer, and you can actually buy a house that you know for sure will appreciate in the future, in the next 3 4 years. You buy it at a deeper price right now. So that is another advantage of a lease option, where this has a very good local government, this has a very good school area, this has all the the policy that will attract investors to come in, investment to come in, and where money moves, that is where people move to, because people follow the money, right? We all do everything that we go to job, we wake up every day hustling for money and all that. So people follow money. So when you see that this place is actually going to appreciate in the future, you can lock up the price right now. Of course, your seller wants to benefit from the future appreciation as well. So it might be a little higher than what you will be paying right now. So if the house costs, let's say 250 right now, the ARV is 250 right now, you can lock it up for 270, because your actual executory date is in the future. But guess what? That house might worth 300 or more than that by the time you are executing the contract. So that is an advantage for you. It can be a disadvantage when you buy in an area where the value doesn't go up as much, because now you already lock it up at a higher price, and bank is not going to loan you that money, because the house is not valued at the price that you lock it up at. So there's multiple ways to go around those. We cannot be discussing every nitty gritty on this podcast. We only have a short period of time to discuss this, but what I want to mention is that is an advantage when you actually know. You see, you already go through the local policy. You know for sure this house will appreciate. This house is in a very decent and good environment. It is a very good option to lock it up right now, because if you wait for that 2 3 4 years, you might be buying at a higher price at that point. So these are advantage that comes with lease option. Another thing is there's nothing like due on sale when it comes to lease option. Due on sale is or uh acceleration clause. It's the same thing. Due on sale, it's a term in the mortgage uh lingo that states when you or the owner of the property sell their property, they have to pay whatever is due on that property. So lease option is actually an avenue to escape that, because there's nothing like transfer of deed, right? If the deed transfer, that is when the due on sale can be called, but the deed still stay on this person's name. You only have the rights due to the contract that both of you sign to own the house, and that is just what is happening, right? So, and when you execute the contract, you pay out the outright the price of the property. Then the owner can go to bank and pay them off as well. So this is a very good strategy when you talk to a seller that is kind of scared of due on sale. So when they are scared of due on sale, I would say sharpen up your sales skills so that uh, you can kind of go over all the nitty gritty with them and make them feel comfortable. But in a case where someone doesn't feel comfortable with, subject to lease with an option to purchase is actually a thing that you can use to conquer and make sure that deal doesn't just fall off. Another thing is you can assign a lease option. You can assign it. You can actually assign a contract that you sign with a lease option to end buyer that will actually purchase it and fulfill the contract. And at the end of the day, they execute the contract and go on with their life, and you make some money and as well pay your seller as well. So those are the advantage. There are a little bit of disadvantage to it. It's not really a disadvantage in my opinion, because there is a solution for all of it. However, if you I mentioned one earlier, if you lock it up on at a higher price, it's actually a disadvantage. If the area doesn't appreciate as much, it might end up biting you. That is one. There is a fee for a lease option. So if we are going into a lease option agreement, there is actually a fee you will pay to the seller to lock it up. Just in case you back out at the end of the contract or in the middle of the contract, or you don't fulfill any part of the contract, that will be what the seller is holding on to as their benefit of letting you stay in the house for the period of time. Also, couple with that fee, you have to pay the first month and the last month, basically like paying the first month of a renter and a security deposit, basically something similar like that. And you have to pay, so it can get a little pricey. The money can get a little pricey. Maybe the seller wants 5,000 for the lease option contract. The house rent for 1,800. When you pay 2 months of rent, that is 3,006 already. Plus 5,000, that is 8,006. So it can get a little pricey. It's not really zero down payment like they always target. So things like that you need to be well aware of when you are dealing with lease option. Another one is the rent for lease option is typically higher than market rent, because this is being calculated for the future. So the seller at the middle of the agreement, they cannot increase the rent. So they want to put that buffer in it. So if the market rent goes for 1,500, be expecting to be paying something around 17 and 1,800 when you are going into a lease option. So the market rent is typically higher, and it might be a disadvantage because you are paying more money. Lease options are illegal in some states because some people have get born before, but there is still way around it. Okay, so they call it executory contracts in state of Texas. They don't allow it anymore, but there is still way around it. So you need to speak to an expert in order to get around those kind of obstacles when you get to uh, 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 that's corner. So another thing is you need to record the contract that you have with the seller with the recorder's office, because if you don't, that is the only thing that protects your interest. The deed doesn't transfer to your name. So the only thing that protects your interest is the contract that you guys have. And if you don't record it, God forbid that seller passed away, and the son or whoever is now the next of kin claim that they don't have any agreement with you, guess what? You don't record it. Nobody knows if any agreement is between you guys. That can come back and bite you. So those are the things that I think you need to be very aware when you are doing lease option. But take a good note that it is not just you rent or you own. There's a middle ground where you can rent before you own the property. There are so many reasons that can warrant that. One of them is you working on your requirements to qualify for the real mortgage. Another one is if you are a contractor, that your job is it's a 1099. You have a 1099 job, self-employed or independent contractor. You might not meet some banking criteria to qualify for a mortgage. So getting into a house of your dream, lease option might be a very good option for you to go when it comes to that. So I don't want to overboard you with a lot of this. If you have any other information, any other question or comment, please put it in the chat. Let's make this very engaging. Ibrahim, I have explained what lease options are. I hopefully I clarify everything. I want
Yes.
to, ask if you have any addition to that, and as well, what is land contract? Because, like I mentioned, we are doing a double today: lease option and land contract. They are very similar topics, so we have to bring them together.
Mhm.
So, if you have any comments with the lease option, please do give us your knowledge. We want to hear that as well. And also, what is land contract?
I believe you've done a tremendous job on, I mean, explaining lease option, and it's very detailed and very clear. I don't have any addition to that because you've, you know, hit the nail on the major points which are critical in this um, on this podcast. So I'm sure it's very clear, and I don't have any suggestion or question. Excuse me. If you permit me, I would like to go into land contract. Um,
Absolutely.
so land contract, it is like a terminology for a contract, a written agreement between the owner of a property and a buyer of that property, or potential buyer of that property. So it's really a terminology they use in real estate. I mean, it doesn't really have to be a property. It can be a land. It can be a commercial buildings. It can be apartment. So what is this land contract? Basically, it is like an agreement where the seller is going to finance the property. So a layman language, or a layman name for such transaction is called seller financing. So technically, the seller is financing the transaction. That way, you, the buyer, you don't have to go to the bank. Why would somebody want to do that? I mean, for various reasons. If you feel like your credit is not there, or you have too many debt, or for some other reasons that the bank is unable, or our banks are unable to fund you, then you can go to the seller, and the seller can if you negotiate your way through everything, the seller might be able to finance the transaction for you, which is land contract. Now, there are different ways, and there are different types of land contract. We're going to look at the traditional one, and we're going to look at the wraparound land contract. So let's go with traditional one first. So land contract, like I said, the seller is taking it up to him or her to finance the transaction. Now, usually it comes with interest rate. However, if you know how to negotiate, you know how to build relationship, you know how to build trust, you know how to build credibility, it's possible that the seller will finance a transaction for zero interest rate, which is no interest rate. It's possible. In fact, it is possible that you won't pay nothing from the beginning, and all you have to pay is monthly payment. Now, this is not the common stuff out there. The majority of the land contracts, you have to pay some amount to get started, depending on what the seller is requiring from you. And it comes with interest rate. Now, the percentage, the market will determine the percentage, and how good you are in negotiation will determine what interest rate the seller will give you. But majority of the time, it comes with interest rate. So let's say, yeah, it comes with interest rate, since that's the most prominent way of doing land contract. Okay, it comes with interest rate. You're able to negotiate very lower interest rate, and the seller is financing it. Why would you still do it when it comes with interest rate? First of all, it's because majority of the time, typically the interest rate is lower than the one you get from the bank. So that alone is, it's a good way. I mean, or it's something that will attract any serious buyer, because if you can find someone who is going to finance your deal, and the person is giving you lower interest rate, that alone interests a lot of investors. Okay. Now, another one is that you don't have to show your document. Like, I mean, like tax return, W-2, and all that stuff. You don't have to. Um, It's a deal between you and the seller. Now, are you going to go through all that legal, or let me say processing of closing and all that? Yes, you still have to do that, because most of the time you guys go to the title company. They're gonna do the title search to make sure the seller is actually the owner of the property. It's even smart to do that. As a buyer, you have to protect yourself, because the fact that the seller is funding the transaction does not mean, or financing a transaction does not mean, that you won't do your due diligence. You have to do your due diligence. It's very important. So you have to do title search, make sure that individual is the only person responsible, or if it's three, five people, no matter the number is, make sure those people are the one showing up or popping up as the owner of that property. You don't want any surprise where there are three people, or one people, or I mean one individual somewhere having interest in that property, but you, because you didn't do your due diligence, um, you let just the partial owner to to fund the transaction, because it can backfire on you, because the other person can sue the whole transaction, sue you and the seller, because at this point you are not getting the consent of the entire owner of the property. You only get partial consent. And this can happen with land contract, because um, especially if you guys don't go through the title company. Even going to the title company, you have to go to the good one, because with land contracts, some information can get missing, just because the land may be, or the property may be owned by their grandfather, their grandmother, and this and that, and the fact that you're not going through the bank. There are usually when you go through the mortgage company, they do some comprehensive title search. They go through the city to find out. They do a lot of stuff that really that you might miss if you just go straight to uh, seller financing without doing your due diligence. So you have to really put some extra work to make sure you are dealing with the right person. Okay, so if I mentioned part of the benefit, which is most of the time your interest rate will be lower. Even though your interest rate is lower, you still have to negotiate the years that you pay the whole transaction, that you wrap it up. The reason why I said that, it's possible that you get a line contract and your monthly payment, even though the interest rate is low, your monthly payment can be high, just because of the terms that you and the seller agree to initiate. So you have to make sure it's something that works for your business, works for you. Um, the monthly payment. So if you have to negotiate 30 years, oh well, if that's what's gonna work for you, then go for that, because you don't want to put yourself in a tight box, or in a box, just because it's a line contract. And uh, you know no negotiation is better than a bad negotiation. Okay, if you just go ahead and take it the way it is and make sure it works for you, it's better than you actually negotiate and put yourself in the wrong spot. That's even worse. So what am I saying here? Even though it's a land contract, you still have to do your due diligence, negotiate very well, make sure the monthly payment, your business can fund that monthly payment. You've already checked the gross income, what you're gonna get, the gross. You've checked your net after your expenses, you've checked your cash flow, and you've seen that yes, you can fund this transaction. Then you can use that to negotiate your monthly payment. Because at the end of the day, even when you are doing line contract, you still have to go have some cash flow. You cannot depend on equity on land contract. That would be the biggest mistake. You can, if you want to depend on equity on land contract, it might bite you in the butt, because first of all, the land contract, the traditional one, you don't have the deed yet. You're not gonna get the deed until the transaction is done. What you get is equitable title, not the real deed. Now, how can you get No, no. What is the benefit of getting equitable title when you are banking on that equity? However, because you didn't do your due diligence, you're not getting enough equity, or the equity is not even growing the way you want it to grow. First of all, nobody controls equity. Equity is nature, okay? Demand and supplies, okay? Now, and you are banking on that. What about if the market go to the south? Then you have nothing, because the real title you don't have it yet until you're done with the payment. Now, the equity I'm banking on, the economy is not good, or something, something, something. Anything can go wrong. So my point here is, you work on. You buy a house in a good area, which is, you are open on good equity. However, you need to have a cash flow. That alone will motivate you. That alone will keep you going and making your payment, because you don't want to default on that. Because land contract can be so how do I say this? Can be so fatal when you stop paying, because the seller, the way land contract is programmed, the seller, they can just stop. Like, okay, you've default 2 months or 1 month, and that's it. Like, the way mortgage company can try to work with you and all that legally, land contract, the owner can choose to just call the like cancel the whole thing, just because the way it is set up is different. Just because banks, the corporation, they have some like like ethics. They have different kind of department that try to help people. And again, the banks, they are not in the business to just take your property. They don't like that. They just want their money. But an individual who is selling your property, that person might see someone who is eyeing the same property, and they're just waiting for you to make one error, like not paying your bill, maybe one or two. They can just cancel the whole thing. All they have to do is give you the amount that you already paid. That is a nice person, might give you part of it, or just tell you we're done, because you default on the whole thing. And if you go to court, you're probably going to lose, because the contract says you have to keep paying so days, so time. So that person may give it to another one. But the mortgage company will never do that, because if they cannot sell a house to you and try to sell it to the next person right away. No, they don't do that. It has to go through the process, and the process may take another 6 months. So what am I saying here? What I'm saying is, land contract can be dangerous if you don't know how to do it. You have to really understand relationship matters a lot. You have to be know how to negotiate. You have to keep up your commitment, and you have to understand that before you do it, how profitable is this to your business. If it's not gonna be profitable, if you are just open on equity, that is not a great idea, especially with land contract. You have to make sure it's going to work for you before you do it. Now, the second one is wrap around. So that one is like, it's still the same thing, where you negotiate, you get the you go to the title company, you get the property, you are paying. However, instead of, you still pay the seller. The reason why this is called wraparound is because the seller still has a mortgage on that property. So now you're paying the seller is paying the mortgage company. So let's say, the seller is paying $1,000. Now the agreement you made with the seller is you're gonna be paying 1,500, for example. So the seller will pocket 500 and pay the mortgage company $1,000. With this, you have the deed the first day, which is the way wrap around this program. You are entitled to get the deed right away. Now, what are the consequences of this? Because it's a big consequence, because the bank have to kind of approve this, because now you are changing deed. Just like what Ahmed educated us about concerning the due on sale clause. This might trigger due on sale clause, especially if you did not inform, or the seller did not inform the mortgage company. So you actually have to let the mortgage company knows that, okay, know that you want to do this kind of transaction. Okay, because they have to change the deed to your name. Now you have the real deed, which is different from the equitable title. This is the real title. The side effect is that, let's say you pay the seller and the seller choose not to pay, the bank still has the power to seize the property or foreclose the property. And in this scenario, it's like you are losing because you are paying the seller is pocketing the money, not even paying the title company, I mean the mortgage company, and you are unable to pay directly just because of the way it's structured. In some situation, maybe when you change the deed to your name, you might be able to negotiate with the mortgage company where you pay the money directly to them and pay the seller the extra, which is the 500 in this scenario, and you pay $1,000 directly to the mortgage company. If you are able to do that, that would be the best, because that way, the mortgage companies, they get paid, and the seller got his own share. Otherwise, if the seller is not keeping up, it might affect you. How can you get around that? You have to make sure in the contract it is written vividly, clearly, that if the seller choose not to pay or delay payment after you have paid the seller for 1 or 2 months, you have to be specific. You are going to sue the seller or get the property, or you make the payment directly to the mortgage company. If that is in the contract, if anything or something like that should happen, at least you have a legal document to present in the court or to show the mortgage company that you have done your due diligence. Is the seller that is messing up. You have to protect yourself, cover your butt. That's what we like to use that in the medical field. They say cover your butt. Anyway, let me get back to the main topic. So, land contract, it's a it's the term, it's the same thing as seller financing. It's just the way you program it, the way you initiate the contract might be different. um why would you do that? Like I said earlier, it's because it's it's very attractive, because if you know how to negotiate, you find a good seller who is committed, who is motivated to sell. You can get a good deal. You can get a house for less, or even when you get it for the actual price, it's possible that you won't pay no interest. And when you calculate how much interest you're gonna pay for 20 years, 30 years with the traditional lender, which is the mortgage company, it saves you a lot of money. Sometimes 200,000, $300,000. You know, so it is a good strategy, a good funding strategy that any investor might look into or should look into if you find the opportunity. One thing I need to mention is that with land contract, you have to be careful. I keep mentioning that you have to be careful because when you are about to sign the contract, you have to make sure that you are prepared for balloon payment, or you are ready to negotiate with the seller to take out balloon payment. Now, balloon payment usually comes at the end of the transaction. Like, let's say you sign for 5 years, you'll be paying normal payment, and this maybe 5 months before the deadline or 1 year before, for after 4 years, the fifth year, which is the last year, the balloon payment may come in where it might say you'll be paying 5 times of the monthly payment for the rest of the 5 years. In that case, a smart investor, after you have you know looked at everything, you've assessed your income, you've known what you're gonna be making, you know that that is not a good deal for the kind of business you are trying to do with that property. You should negotiate that. Instead of putting just in a 1 year, you can say, okay, can we split that into 4 years or 3 years? That way it won't come as a balloon. It will be like a normal payment. Or even if it's a little more, maybe it will be two times the payment, not five or six times. Okay. But a lot of people, sometimes they get caught up with the normal monthly payment, and they get caught up because it says zero interest, which is true, zero interest. However, you can still you might still find yourself in a you might still find it difficult to make the payment if there's a balloon for a year or 2 years, just because the seller multiplies multiple monthly payment, that way to reduce the years that it will take you to pay off the entire uh, 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 payment plan, to end the payment plan. So it's better for you to actually stretch it as much as possible. A lot of the sellers, the majority of them don't want 30 years. I'll tell you that straight up. Majority of them don't want 30 years. But if you know how to negotiate, nothing is impossible. If you can make it 30 years, that means you get just gonna be paying normal payment. That's it. There'll be no balloon. If you can make it 20, great. You might have some balloon, but it'll be little. I don't think I should call that balloon big. It will just be a little extra payment. But in a scenario where a funding that's supposed to be like, for 30 years, you are making it 5 years. It means there's a high chance you're gonna have a balloon at the end of the maybe the fifth or the fourth year, and it might be too crazy for your business. So you have to watch out for that. Don't just get caught up with zero interest rate. Okay. Make sure all the payment throughout the business is what is gonna work for your business. You don't want to stay in business for 3 years and the fourth and fifth year then your business crash. It's like a waste of time. Why did you even do it? Why even get yourself into that mess? So what am I saying here? I'm saying land contract, you sometimes, majority of the time, you are the seller are doing it. You might have one person between a lawyer, but it depends on who hires the lawyer. If the seller hires the lawyer probably will not have really enough time to really explain everything to you, or the person might just go over it and scan through it, expect you to read it and find out, or you know make sure it works for you without necessarily being your fiduciary, because you didn't hire the lawyer. That in that scenario, the seller hires the lawyer. So what's my point? The seller is going to be, I mean, the lawyer is going to be watching out for the interest of his client, because at that in that scenario, you are not his client. If it's possible, you might have to involve people on your, which is like your lawyer or your real estate agent, you know, someone who knows about land contract. That way you are protected, the seller is protected. Ahmed, land contract, it's very nice if you can find a good seller. And actually have I know someone, who did land contract, and it's going well. For the most part, financially it's going well. Um, but there are some stuff that you inherit from land contract. For example, let's say you purchase a land with property, there's an easement issue, the neighbor has been hiring that, or they've been passing that road, and that road, it's not really like, that's not where they should be using. But because the land is big, the owner doesn't care too much, just because they just feel like, well, it's a big place and everything. But you that you are buying it now, you have your own plan, and the plan might be different from the real seller, the real owner. Now you are feeling like that place should be used for something else, it shouldn't be for the road. However, the fact that those neighbors, they are used to it. They've been doing it for 20 years, taking the same road, even though it's a private land for you. They shouldn't be taking it, but because the owner has not complained, or or sees no need to complain. Now, it might lead to going to to the court, like, because those people will say, "Oh, we've been using this for more than 20 years." So, and one thing with Indiana law, or let me say the US law, when an individual has been using something, it can happen to a house. Like if you leave your house open, a stranger or a squatter get into the house, and that person lives in the house, and people around are seeing that person. Even if you don't see that person, but people around are seeing that person, nobody chased the person, nobody called the police. The person stay in that house for I think 6 or 7 years. You might not be able to get that house again. That person will own the house. There's a law for that. Let me see what's the name of this law. Anyway, my point here is that the fact that I don't want to deviate from the real topic. The real topic is the land contract. Now, the fact that they've been using that land, that easement for a long time, it's possible that you might have to go into legal battle with those neighbors because the owner might feel like there's no need for him or her to go to the court because he or she is selling it now. Now it's you that you're buying it. Now, in that case, what do you advise or what do you think the buyer should do?
Um, thank you for sharing me all this knowledge so far. Personally, I will reiterate something that you mentioned that people might not catch, which is do your due diligence in any transaction, regardless of who is selling to you, who you are buying from. Don't just take people's word for what they say to you. Just verify and re-verify. It doesn't hurt to re-verify because those hidden things might comes back to actually hurt. In case of a legal battle, I mean, imagine what uh, legal fee, extra expenses that you don't account for we have to happen and all that. So it doesn't worth uh, doing if you can't verify. Because if just someone is blocking you from verifying things, then there must be something behind it, right?
Mhm,
So in my own opinion, is make sure you use a title company, and also make sure you this is I always tell people think less of what if. But in a situation where you are going into an agreement, a written agreement and a signed agreement for that matter, make sure you think about every what if. In this case now, think about what you just explained is just one scenario. Think about the seller signing the contracts to you right now. In any contract, really, when it comes to lease option, land contracts, agreement for sale, seller financing, and they go behind your back just because they still have the deed under their name to go and get a cash out refinance or put a lien against the house.
yeah,
So you need to be very diligent when you are writing up the contract. Make sure you everything that cross your mind, put it in there. So if they have e-lock on the house, make sure you get a letter from the bank that states that they cannot get any money out of that e-lock again,
yeah.
because now you are responsible for paying it.
Mhm,
So if they are doing a land contract with your lease option with you, make sure you put it in the contract that they, for no reason, cannot go through a bank or any establishment to get a loan against that house again. So these are the risks that are in all these options and contracts, but you just need to do your due diligence. People do it, and they some people build a business around it. But with every investment, with every business, there is a risk, right? So these are one of the risks. So you just have to make sure you do your due diligence, and just to prevent the headache, because the headache might, if they come, it can be a tsunami that will take out all your profits that you've been planning. Or just like Ibrahim said, you see a potential which the buyer doesn't see. That is why you are actually purchasing the house. Now you want to construct the dream that you have for the property. The neighbors are, come up and they started this lawsuit against you and all that. So and he's very correct. I have a situation. I've seen a situation where uh, his sister lets just two sisters, right? The older one let the younger one stay in the house for 20 years without paying any mortgage. Now the sister wants to sell the house, and the younger sister is claiming the house.
Yeah.
The older sister actually sell the house, but the younger sister doesn't want to move because he claimed the house. It's like, I live here for 20 years and all that.
Mhm,
You see.
mhm.
So things like that happen all the time. You just have to make sure you get everything straightened up. And problem can bring an opportunity sometimes. If you see that problem and you think you can solve it, it might be a reason why you get a good deal. But you need to factor it. It needs to be something you decide to take on, not something that gets imposed on you after you close the deal. Because if you know you can easily solve that problem, the person is selling it because they don't want to deal with the problem. That is a deal for you right there. So it might be a blessing, but make sure it is not something that gets imposed on you. It is something you willingly take on, because it might get a little crazy. It's just my that is basically my opinion on it. And uh, we don't have any question. Ibrahim, do you have any other thing before we kind of wrap up? And
No, 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 no. It's a good day. We want to appreciate everyone, and you want to go back and watch this episode because you don't want to miss this. This is very educative, and we've shared a lot of informative and valuable, you know, lesson and information that you want to go through. Um, so I don't have any question per se. Ahmed, do you have anything you want to add
I
to
don't
this?
have anything. So this is the thing, guys. So one of the things that Ibrahim mentioned is to get a real estate professional involved when you are doing all these transactions, so that they can guide you, right? And one thing that I know for sure is Ibrahim is a competent real estate agent. This is what he does. I mean, it's that this is his bread and butter every day. So bringing this to you, if you need a help when you are signing all these contracts, if you need help when you want to buy your house, if you need help, you want to sell your house. Let's say you want to sell your house on agreements for sale or stuff like that. Get Ibrahim involved. He's always ready to advise you with so many options. This is someone that invests himself, and he really know all the option that is available for you. He can actually tell you what their pros and cons of every strategy is. So please and please don't just overlook little things. And we get excited a lot of time. Getting a third party involved might be the life changer. It might be the difference in the transaction. So I will encourage you. But Ibrahim, I want to say, how can people reach out to you if they have an opportunity like this and they want to work with you, they want to sell their property, they want to buy a new property? How can people reach out to you?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank you for the commendation and the commercial you just ran just now for free. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, so this is what I do. I'm a real estate broker, managing broker for IB Router. So, oh, I'm passionate about this. I love real estate. I can help you secure your property. I can help you sell your property with less or no stress. We all know that there's always some kind of fear or anxiety attached to real estate, but all that, it's what I have, experienced myself personally. As he mentioned, I'm an investor, so I know what it takes and how, the tips and tricks and all that, how to get away, get around it. So to get in contact with me, you can DM me, IB Rotos on, Instagram. You can call me 317 Again, 317 by the way, we have full package. Like I said that last week in this podcast, you are covered because when it comes to, of course, many of us, we do W2 job. We want to buy real estate. We want to get into it. Contact me. I'll get you the real estate. But before you even buy the real estate, we always advise in this podcast, you have to think about how do you even want to manage a property, because it's one thing to get into business, it's another thing to manage. And it's not just manage, to see how you can maximize your profit, because at the end of the day, you don't want to do a business where, all you are facing is headache, no enough cash flow, and you bought a property that it's not appreciating and all that. So all this are something that do the podcast here. We have a professional that can help you with this. Now, what am I getting to? I'm saying that if you buy your property, or when you are about to buy a property, you might need a property manager. If especially if you are doing W2 job, get a property manager that will help you manage this property. Get a advice from them, you know, regarding what you can get, because it's one thing to be getting 200 for or 300 for the same property that someone else, like somebody like you, I repeat, is getting 700, 800, 900, 1000 cash flow. And I'm not talking about gross here, I'm talking about cash flow, and you are getting $200. And from that 200, don't forget, you have to save for maintenance. So you barely get anything.
Yep.
But the next one that I just painted is getting $700. It's getting $800 for the same property. You see how that is? So get someone who can manage your property that will tell you how you can maximize your profit, and you don't have to worry about the headache. And I'm talking about Azio property. So you are covered. Ahmed is the how do I introduce you? Are you the manager or the director or the president? So anyway,
Anything goes.
Ahmed, can you introduce yourself? Because I want
Yeah, for those that doesn't know me, this is Ahmed, and I run ACO Property. Um, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I run a HC Property, and AC Property come about from the pain of not people not making enough return on their investments as they should. And I see the opportunity of helping others to do the same thing that me and Ibrahim are doing. So I'm like, okay, let me just take this opportunity to set up a business that will be helping everybody out there to maximize their real estate, uh, returns, right?
Mhm.
So that is what is super property. That is why we come about. And you can always reach me on 317-689-7075. So call me, text me anytime. I can always visit, give it, my analysis, give you my opinion. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I will tell you how it is. So if you don't like the truth, don't call me. I'll tell you how it is. I always want to work with people that thinks like me, people that actually want to explore, because that is how we can discover things that are new, and that is how we can actually guess what, everybody that gets rich today do so by inventing or creating something that hasn't been existent before. So let's explore together, and let's there are standard way that I can definitely predict how much you will be making, and I'm open to working your property for you. So just reach out if you have any question, and even if it is not management, anything real estate, I definitely know someone that do it. I will guide you through it. Maybe down the line we can do business together. Just reach out and let's talk. So that is the episode for today. Thank you all for joining. Ibrahim, thank you for me. I know it's Ramadan time. I haven't
Mhm.
eaten, you haven't eaten, but we make a commitment to showing up every Friday. The only thing we requested from you guys is to go on our social media page on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, everywhere that you are listening to us from. Please give your comment, like, and subscribe to our channel. We really, really appreciate that, and that will help us to reach so much more people so that they can benefit from this information.
Yeah,
Until
yeah. Please
next
follow
week.
us on Instagram, follow us on
Yep,
Facebook, please.
yep,
All right, thank you.
absolutely. Until next week, see you guys. Bye.
Bye.